Objection is sustained. You may ask your next question.
So after Elliott Spitzer and the settlement happened in New York, you got out of the business because it was no longer profitable, out of the telemarketing business.
I got out of the business of specifically running call centers and telemarketers.
What about the decision from Elliott Spitzer, the agreement you reached made it no longer profitable?
Objection, relevance.
Well, did one have to do with the other? Let me ask that, Mr. Gelman.
I didn't understand the question.
Well, if I do, say so if I'm not understanding, Mr. Patus, but you went out of business or changed businesses, is that a fair statement?
What we did is...
We stopped being the active solicitor.
Correct. That's what we did.
And you also had a settlement in New York with respect to the Spitzer matter.
Correct.
Did one have anything to do with the other? That is, the settlement with Spitzer have anything to do with your stop actively?
The settlement we had with Elliott Spitzer did not allow us to continue calling the state of New York. So as far as telemarketing within New York, that is indeed why we stopped.
Altogether?
Just New York. As far as the other states, we wound them down. We were probably in 7 states or something, Northeast U.S. And
so was that New York issue part and parcel of the reason why you started winding down everything else?
Yeah, it was a good factor. That and the economy were 2 factors.
All right. Would you just pull that microphone down just a little bit? There you go. Next question, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you know a man by the name of Bill English?
Yes.
How do you know Bill English?
Bill English is an employee of mine.
Is Bill English the individual who made the, sorry, I put my hand in front of my face, is Bill English the individual who made the referral from your company to CSI?
I don't know. It's I'm not sure. I thought it was me, but it was 10 years ago, so I don't remember exactly.
Okay. One constant that is still the same is a gentleman by the name of Breckenbush. He managed the call center for you, or worked in that call center with you under your company, and now he owns or is the president of CSI. Correct?
He managed a call center for All Pro Telemarketing, and he was the president of community support as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you agree with me that if you're a charity, it might make sense that you believe there's some continuity between All Pro Tel and CSI? If you have the same person actually doing the work at the call center, that hasn't changed. That just, it's a name on the door, essentially, that's all that's changed.
Objection.
Withdraw. Did the people in the call center that were being managed by Mr. Breckenbush, did they change when it switched from CSI to, excuse me, when it switched from All Pro Tel to CSI? Did those people change?
I don't know. I mean, telemarketers go in and out all the time. I couldn't tell you how many of the people stayed and how many left.
Did you actively manage that call center with Mr. Breckenbush?
No.
Okay. So Mr. Breckenbush was the one who was managing the call center?
Yes.
And he was managing it under you at All Pro Tel?
If you were referencing the 2003 to 4 period, yes.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then he became or is the president of CSI, who, according to the filings, took over in 2004, right after you. He was the president of that firm.
Correct.
So as far as who's managing the day-to-day operations, it's Breckenbush. And he's been doing that since 2003.
Not the day-to-day operations. What Tom Birkenbush did is ran the call center.
I'm talking about the call center, the people making the phone calls, the telemarketers. He's the one who's been doing it since 2003.
Correct.
Now, as it relates to the money that your company raised here, you kept 90% of that money, correct?
I didn't keep 90% of the money, but the contractual terms were 10% goes to the organization and 90% is used to run all the expenses of the campaign.
So you have to pay people, so you use that 90% to pay everyone. How much is left after the 90%, or after you pay people? How much of that 90% is left, on average?
Left,
For you? What's your profit?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Now, you testified that you did not manage the contributions, is that correct? You didn't have custody of the contributions? In other words, it went into a mailbox, the USNVA then took the money out and then sent you a check, is what your testimony was, if I recall, right?
all the monies were deposited into an account under the sole and exclusive control of the nonprofit organization. Then the nonprofit organization paid the professional fundraiser.
And let's talk about how that happens. The way that functionally happens, there's an agreement that the money will automatically transfer out and it will essentially be divided up. Because that's why in your filing you wrote the professional solicitor will have custody of the contributions, and you checked yes.
Can I see what you're referencing?
Absolutely. This is in Exhibit 29, page 2, number 6.
It is checked yes.
Okay. So if you never had control of the contributions, if you were just getting paid after the fact, why would you need to check yes there?
I would not need to check yes there.
All right. What is a excuse me, I apologize. John. One moment.
Sure.
What is a zero balance agreement?
A zero balance agreement?
Correct.
As far as banking or?
Yeah. Let me give some, I'll back up and I'll withdraw that question. You first used the bank, I think it was Wachovia, correct?
Yes.
And as a result of some issues you had, Wachovia no longer wanted to do business with you, and you decided to go, I believe, to First Wisconsin. Is that correct?
No, not exactly. Wachovia made a decision to not have any telemarketers on a nationwide level in that bank.
Okay.
So that was that was not particular to us. So during the time All Pro worked for USNVA, Wachovia was the bank that was utilized.
Okay. And that was a bank in New Jersey, correct? It was the bank that you used?
Was it in New Jersey? We banked at a branch in New Jersey, but it's it was a national bank.
Absolutely. And for Ohio, we're going to talk just about Ohio here. There was a mailbox in Cincinnati that the USNVA used to used as their mailbox. It was in Cincinnati, Ohio, correct?
I don't know.
What bank would when a solicitor sent money, what bank, what branch would they send it to? What location? Where did you have the money going?
Who would be the solicitor in that question?
You, All Pro Tel. If an All Pro Tel telemarketer calls and gets me to send them $10, what address am I sending the $10 to?
That would be to a mailbox, and I don't know what mailbox. So mailboxes are set up for the nonprofit, and I don't remember what mailbox.
And you set the mailboxes up, and I think you set this one up in Columbus, correct?
I don't remember.
Do you agree with me? You set the mailbox up.
I don't vividly remember. In some cases, the charity sets it up, and you're going back 10 years. I just don't remember who set a or that mailbox up.
Okay, you don't remember. So you can't tell this jury for certain who set up the mailbox that collected the contributions.
Objection, asked and answered, asked and answered.
Overruled. Do you recall, sir?
I don't remember who set that mailbox up.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Thank you. Now, for your company, did you record the telephone calls? Did you record all the telephone calls that your telemarketers made?
No.
Did you have any form of quality assurance then to make sure that your telemarketers were saying the things in the script that they were supposed to say?
Yes.
If you explain that, tell the jury how you managed to do this.
How we know that they were saying the things they were supposed to say? Well, there's many, there's a checklist in place. For example, there would be a phone room manager listening to what the callers are saying. Anybody who gives an affirmative response on the telephone and states that yes, they would like to support the organization, prior to processing that and mailing the consumer a pledge package, a verifier, which is a second party, takes over the phone call and confirms that the potential contributor is aware of the name of the organization, the professional status of the fundraiser. Then the verifier would ask the consumer, what is the amount that you'll be sending in? So the consumer is fully aware of how this all works and that they will receive first the pledge kit. Also, once the consumer receives the pledge kit after they do give an affirmative response that they would like to support, there is a toll-free number there. So if they have any questions, they would call in. So if there was anything not accurate that was stated, we would have had consumers calling us saying, I didn't agree to this, or this isn't what I thought it was, which is why it's very important that the scripting matches exactly the approved materials that are mailed to the consumer, because otherwise the consumer will be confused.
And the quality assurance is designed to protect, I guess, three people. One, the person who's donating the money. Two, your client. And three, you, right? You being your company.
Generally speaking, yes.
So you don't want to get into a situation like you did in New York. You want to avoid the government coming in and saying you can't work here anymore. Right?
I don't think anybody wants to be in that situation now.
Now, with the fine, I called it the fine print. You can call it something else. The package that gets sent out to the person who's donating the money. What's there's
A pledge kit?
Pledge kit. What's in this pledge kit?
A typical pledge kit would consist of a thank you letter from the organization, which has the mission statement of the organization and the purpose that the donations would be used for.
Okay.
It would have an invoice, which would show the amount of the contribution, and a return address mailing envelope, so they can return the contribution in the form of a check. It would have all the proper mandated disclosures, such as the professional status of the professional fundraiser. In some cases, there would be a brochure detailing a little bit more about the program services of the charity. And in some cases, there would be a supporter sticker, an adhesive decal.
Now, in our case here, was there a thank you note from the USMBA?
Yes.
There was an invoice.
Yes.
There was a mission statement.
There should have been. I don't vividly remember the letter.
You don't recall what was on the letter that was sent out to the potential contributors, the potential donors?
I remember some of it. I don't remember the whole letter, and
Okay.
it had to have had a mission statement, but I just don't remember that particular letter.
In your preparation for coming here, you didn't review that prior to coming in?
No.
How about, I'm sure there was a return envelope?
Yes.
I'm sure, well, did you make your proper disclosures?
Yes.
Consistent with law?
Of course.
Do you know if you had a brochure or a sticker?
I don't remember a brochure for this particular campaign for Navy veterans.
Okay.
Do I remember a sticker? I don't vividly remember a sticker. There may have been a sticker for certain states. I don't vividly remember it.
That was a good question mark there. What, do you recall the script that the USMBA provided you? Recall what the script said, or have you seen that prior to coming in here today? Did you review that?
I saw it at one point. If you have it, I'm happy to identify it.
I haven't seen it. That's what I was asking you. When did you first learn that these yellow tab forms, when did you first learn that these yellow tab forms, beyond the one you filed, when did you first learn they existed? You know, in other words, when did you learn somebody else had filed these? And I'm referring to the documents in 27 and 28.
Are you referencing the solicitation notice
Yes,
or
sir.
the registration notice?
The solicitation notice.
Today, it appears, as I'm looking at it, that there was something awkward about the forms. Through normal course of business, you would send the solicitation notice in. So I don't really know what happened there.
When was the first time you learned that those forms had been filed after you stopped working for USMBA?
I don't know that they were. I mean, the exhibit you showed me, I don't know that was one paper that was put in. I couldn't tell you. I could tell you I didn't send them in. I don't know if somebody did or who did.
So you have no idea who sent those forms in, or how they even got there?
I could tell you I did not send them in. I could not tell you how they got there.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
Any redirect?
Couple questions. Probably bad thing to say. There was a couple of questions concerning the form. I think it was in the registration notice, the solicitation notice, where it said that at one point that there was a check mark, and it identifies that the professional fundraiser, All Pro, would have custody and control, custody of the funds coming in at some point in time, correct? You have to say yes or no.
Yeah, that's our yes.
Okay. Now, there were a bunch of questions about that. And there was something about the mailbox. The donor takes and sends the money to the mailbox, correct?
Yes.
And then when that mailbox, the money, the checks that are in that mailbox, do they go straight from there to a bank?
No, they go from there to a caging facility. We use a company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that actually opens up the mail and then prepares it to deposit in the bank.
So it doesn't just go directly to a bank. It goes, and when you're saying a caging company, is that a company you hire to act as your agent for the purpose of receiving those kinds of items?
Yes.
So it's an extension of your company to the extent you hire them to do that?
They provide a service for us, yes.
Okay. So is, when that money goes from the mailbox to the caging company, is any money removed from, I mean, or any, if $1 is sent there, is any of that dollar taken by you, the professional fundraiser, at that point?
No.
For your fees?
No.
Is any of that money taken by the caging company that does that service for you of receiving the money?
No.
Okay, so now the money's at this caging company. So it is, in fact, at that point in time, in your custody, wouldn't you agree?
No.
Oh, it's not in your custody, you don't believe at that point in time?
No.
Okay. It goes from there, when they process it, is that when they process it and then they put it into the account that the customer, the client, the organization that's hiring you guys, that's when it goes into the account set up by the client.
That's correct.
And when that money comes in, every single dime of that money goes into that account, correct?
Correct.
Okay, before it goes into that account, y'all as the professional fundraiser do not take a single dime of that money, if I understand correctly, correct?
We do not take any of them.
That's to form the question sustained.
Okay, so how much of the money do you take if I send $1 in before that money's placed into that account that is under the sole control of the client, in this case USMBA, how much of that money do you take?
None of it.
So if I send you $1 goes into that account.
Correct.
Then when do you get your fee?
After the monies clear the client's account, the client then pays us.
There were some questions at the end, in this big long list of things that go into a pledge kit, and there were some questions that went on about your telemarketers, the people that make the calls.
Yes.
Remember that? And what they say to somebody that they're approaching on the
Yes.
phone? Is one of the things with the USNV, if you recall, is one of the things they're required to talk about is the history of the organization, or is that one of the things they would normally talk about, the history of the organization they're calling to solicit money on behalf of?
Not so much the history as to what the organization is currently doing.
So what it's currently doing?
Yeah.
Okay. And where do they get the information? Where do they get all the information for, and this goes into what you call a script, is that correct?
Correct.
And a script, would you describe real quickly what a script actually does, or what is that?
Sure. A script, it's actually a two-page document. The first page is the sales presentation that the telemarketer would follow, which is approved by the nonprofit organization. And that would basically introduce the organization, introduce that it's a paid professional fundraiser conducting the campaign. It would give you a quick, maybe 2 to 3 sentence on what the money is used for, and then it asks, gives the proper legal disclosures, and then asks for the various donation levels.
Now with a script, is the fundraiser the one who determines what's going to be in that script?
The nonprofit organization's mission is what the script is centered around.
So where do you get do you develop the script, I guess, is what I'm asking.
It's developed by us based on the information we receive from the nonprofit, and then we return the scripting back to the nonprofit for approval to make sure it's consistent with their mission statement and that it's fully accurate.
So you write it up based on whatever they tell you, whatever the organization tells you, and then the organization has to approve what you're going to say.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Anything based upon that?
2 questions. You are the professional solicitor, the expert in developing a script that will get people to donate money. You're the expert in developing that script.
If you say so.
I mean, it's what you do, right? It's your business?
I run an administrative company, but I'm familiar with scripts. Sure.
Was your business, I'm sorry. All Pro-Tel, you were a professional solicitor as All Pro-Tel.
Yes.
And as All Pro-Tel, your job, you made money by getting people to donate.
Yes.
No further questions, thank you.
Anything else?
Nothing for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, you step down.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
Mr. Tom O'Daniel.
You want to give a leg stretch while we're waiting for Mr. O'Daniel? I don't think it's gotten any cooler in here either, has it?
Oh, it's a lot better
Is
than
it?
it was earlier. When it gets warmer, I know it's nice.
I have a little fan in here, I'll let you know. I have it on.
You also have the robes.
Yeah. Well, you would think that robes are robes are robes, and they're not. There are so many options that go into it, and there's like, I think 10 different cloths that you can get. They have, some people have lightweight ones and other ones. This is a wool blend because wool, as you kind of wears well. Regretting that decision a little bit. Sir, why don't you come on up? I have the fan. Would you raise your right hand for me, please? You solemnly swear that you'll testify to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. In this case, now in hearing, as you shall answer unto God.
Yes.
All right, thanks very much. Have a seat. The seat doesn't move forward and back. The microphone moves up and down a little bit, so. Mr. Morrow, you're a witness.
Thank you, sir. Sir, would you state your full name and spell your last name for the court recorder?
Richard Thomas O'Daniel, capital O apostrophe capital D, A-N-I-E-L.
Sir, are you currently employed?
Yes.
Who do you work for?
Trico Office Solutions.
And what's your relationship with Trico Office Solutions?
I'm the president of the company.
Are you also the owner?
Yes.
What do they do?
Sell and service office machines, copiers, printers, that type thing.
Would you describe what your educational background is briefly?
High school, couple of years, West Virginia State College and Old Dominion University in Norfolk.
Did those years at the colleges result in a degree?
No, they did not.
Have you served in the armed forces?
Yes, I have.
What branch?
Army.
How long were you in the Army, sir?
Combined time about 5 years.
And what was the highest rank you attained?
Sergeant,
And what was your specialty as a sergeant?
armor specialist.
Now, I'd like to take you back to at least the year 2004. Did you become aware of an enterprise using the name the United States Navy Veterans Association?
Yes.
How did you become aware of that enterprise?
I received a letter asking if we did telemarketing or tele-fundraising.
Now, at the time you received this letter, where were you living?
Port Orange, Florida.
And did you have, what kind of business were you running at that point in time?
I had a organization called Charity Support Service, and we did a vehicle donation program.
Okay, now, you stated you were contacted by somebody from the USNVA, the United States Navy Veterans Association.
Yes.
And they wanted to know, what was it again?
If we did telemarketing or fundraising in that manner.
Now, who did you receive that letter from?
Bobby Thompson.
Now, you stated you ran a car donation program, is that correct?
That's correct.
Who were you running that for at the time?
Mothers Against Drunk Driving, state of Florida.
Now, the vehicle donation program, that is a type of fundraising, correct?
That is correct.
But you didn't do telemarketing fundraising.
No, we did not.
How did the vehicle donation program work at that point in time?
Well, we ran advertising in some local newspapers and in some small things like penny savers or pinch a penny, that type thing, that are distributed at convenience stores and homes.
So what would happen with somebody that would donate a car? How would that work?
They would call in to make the donation, and we would go out and pick it up. A big percentage of the cars we would junk, and some that would run or drive or were repairable, we would do that and then market them.
What would happen when the money came in then?
Well, the money was distributed from expense. We had a theory. The Navy vets would receive a flat amount for a junk car, and for cars that would run or drive or were greater amounts, there was a greater percentage that would go to them.
Okay, so you either sold, and we're talking general right now, not
Yeah.
necessarily a particular client.
Right.
But what you would do is you'd sell the car, junk the car, correct?
Yes,
And then you get the money for that, correct?
that's correct.
And as I understand what you're saying, then you receive the fee out of that money?
Yes.
Would that be a percentage of the sale price or the junk price, whatever it is?
Well, I guess it would end up, it was whatever was left over, because we had a percentage that we gave to the Navy vets, and then there were expenses on the other side, and whatever was left over was our profit.
Okay. Now, did Charity Support Services operate in any other state other than Florida at the time?
No.
And when you were running Charity Support Services, where did you operate out of? What city?
Out of Daytona and South Daytona at one point.
Where is that in relationship to the city of Tampa in Florida?
It's across the state. They across I-4. We were on the Atlantic, and they were over on the Gulf.
So when you were contacted by this person using the name Bobby Thompson about running a telemarketing program, did you return that contact?
Yes.
How did you do that? Did you call? Did you go see him? What?
I think I called, but and mentioned that we did not do telemarketing, but we did do vehicle donation as a fundraising.
And when you spoke to this person using the name Bobby Thompson, what did he tell you his role was with the USNDA?
He was in charge of funds or fundraising or that type thing.
And what did he say when you told him that you didn't do telemarketing then, but you did vehicle donation programs?
Well, he expressed an interest in that, and so we started crafting an agreement.
Did you eventually set up a vehicle donation program to be used by the United States Navy Veterans Association?
Yes.
Did you have any written agreements with that association then?
Yes, we did.
Now, were those agreements on a year-by-year basis, or was it a long-term one agreement?
Year by year.
Now, who would prepare or provide you with the agreements that you would then sign as to work for the USNBA in that instance?
Bobby Thompson.
Now, pursuant to those agreements, well, did you ever, when you were developing those agreements, did you ever discuss the terms of an agreement with any person supposedly representing that was an officer or director of the USNBA other than the person using the name Bobby Thompson?
No.
Now, in the course of that, did you purchase any vehicles for the person using the name Bobby Thompson and or the United States Navy Veterans Association?
Yes, I did.
What kind of vehicle did you end up purchasing?
It was a F-150 Ford four-wheel drive pickup truck.
Now, you were running the vehicle donation program at the USNBA, correct?
Yes.
Well, how is it then you came to be the person that, well, how did you come to buy this? Who approached you and asked you to buy this vehicle?
Bobby did.
And who did he ask you to buy it for?
For the association.
Again, why would the individual using the name Bobby Thompson approach you to go buy a vehicle, a new vehicle?
I had a used car dealer license, and I could buy from dealerships at about $500 over cost, or actual cost.
So at that point, he asked you to buy a vehicle for the association?
Yes.
Now, was he specific as to the type of truck or vehicle that he wanted?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately how much you paid for that vehicle that was to be for the association?
42, 43,000, somewhere in there.
Was it a brand new vehicle?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 21. Take a moment and look through that document.
What number do you have?
21, Your Honor. Okay, sir, do you recognize that document?
Yes.
Do you recognize that document to be a Florida application for a certificate of title?
Yes, it is.
Okay, now looking at the second page of that, do you recognize that as a copy that's identified as an addendum to the agreement between CSS, Charitable Support Service, and the Florida chapter of what's called the USN, the United States Navy Veterans Association?
Yes, I do.
Now, we'll flip to the last page, and that is a certification stamp from the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, correct?
Yes.
Identifying that this document was a certified document from the Department of Motor Vehicles in Florida, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, let's go back to that second page of the document, which is the addendum to the agreement. Now, looking at the last line in the title, it identifies that the date of the original agreement you had between your company, CSS, and the U.S. Navy Veterans Association was June 1st of 2004. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, looking down on that agreement, looking to the right side as you're, well, let's start with the signature that's on the left side of the document as you're looking at it. Do you recognize whose signature that is?
That is mine.
Now, does this document in itself, the addendum, would that look to be a true and accurate copy of the original?
Yes.
It doesn't appear to be altered in any way, does it?
No.
Now, on the right-hand side, there's a signature for an individual from the United States Navy Veterans Association, Florida chapter, correct?
That's correct.
And do you recognize the signature of the person that appears there on the top?
I do.
What's the signatures you recognize?
Bobby Thompson's.
Now, looking below that, there's another name, correct?
That's correct.
You can't really read the signature, can you?
No.
But below the signature is a name, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What's the name?
Bill Abrams,
And how's his title identified?
Commander or CEO.
Okay. Now, when you were negotiating your terms of your agreement with the USNVA in any time, because you said it was a year-by-year contract, correct?
Yes.
So each year you had to negotiate the terms of a new contract?
Mm-hmm.
You have to say yes or no.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you ever deal with anyone other than the individual using the name Bobby Thompson in formulating those terms of that agreement?
No.
Now, we see this name, Bill Abrams, identified as a commander for what was supposedly the Florida chapter, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever meet with Bill Abrams? You live in Florida, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you ever meet with Bill Abrams?
No.
Did you ever talk with Bill Abrams, supposedly the commander of the Florida chapter?
No.
In the entire time that you ran this vehicle donation program for the USNVA, did you ever meet a single member of the USNVA?
No.
Well, while you were running this vehicle donation program, did you ever have any conversations with the person calling himself Bobby Thompson, where he actually denied that he ever signed any kind of agreement like we're looking at here in Exhibit 21?
No.
That would authorize you to operate this vehicle donation program?
That would, could you repeat that again?
Did you ever have any conversation with the person calling himself Bobby Thompson in the times that you were running the vehicle donation program, this year-by-year thing,
Yes.
where he denied that there was ever any kind of agreement between you and his company?
No, no.
We see that this was again, this was the application for a certificate of title in Florida for an F-150 truck. Did he ever deny, or did he ever have a conversation with you? How many conversations did he have with you, where he denied that he had ever authorized you to purchase this vehicle?
None.
Now, you had, what would you do with your business records? Do you maintain business records for these charitable support services?
Yes.
How would you manage your records?
Basically, my concern on the records, of course, the records were my own financial records and the records that I would be accountable to the IRS. I maintained those. The records that I had between myself and the Navy Veterans Association, I distributed them as necessary to the Veterans Association, and they were to send copies to the IRS, and I also gave the copies to the donors so that they could take the tax deduction.
Now, with things like the agreements that were on a year-by-year basis, how long did you maintain them in your files?
I guess 04 till 09, give or take, somewhere right in there.
And then after that, would you periodically purge your files and eliminate those
Yes,
materials?
yes. I was concerned records-wise, for the most part, with the IRS.
Approximately when did you terminate any relationship with the USNVA and the person calling himself Bobby Thompson?
As far as the vehicle donation program, I think the end of '09, somewhere in there, somewhere in '09.
Now, you stated that you lived in Florida, correct?
Yes.
And did you work anywhere else other than the state of Florida at that point in time?
No.
In that period of about 6 years that you were running this vehicle donation program and being associated with the USNVA, approximately how many times would you say that you physically met the person using the name Bobby Thompson?
Off the top of my head, I think about 3.
Now, what would be the duration of those kinds of meetings?
A day or so.
What would be, was there an event that was associated with the meeting?
One time, he came over and we went to a NASCAR race.
You ever come to your house?
Yes.
And for what occasion was that?
Well, to meet my wife and to have dinner there.
Now, you stated that you never physically met a person by the name of Bill Abrams, correct?
That's correct.
He was supposedly the head of the Florida chapter.
Yes.
And you never even talked to anybody by the name of Bill Abrams, the supposed head of the Florida chapter, correct?
No, did not.
Now, when you started your association with the Navy Veterans Association, when you were first contacted and you started talking to the individual named Bobby Thompson, did you ever request to meet any officer or board member for the USNVA other than the person that was using the name Bobby Thompson?
When we first started to negotiate a contract, I did say that I would like to come over and meet with the board. I thought that that would simplify things, but I was told that that was not necessary.
Well, who told you it wasn't necessary?
Bobby.
Were you ever actually a member of the USNVA?
No, I was not.
Now, to your knowledge, the USNVA was basically, there was supposed to be a national association, correct?
Yes,
And then there were these various state chapters, correct?
that's correct.
In the 6 years that you were associated with this, did you meet a single person who actually claimed to be a member of the USNVA?
No.
Now, I'd like to take you to May of 2010. Now, were you approached by any person about becoming what would be called a director of the USNVA? Now, that's whether it was of a state chapter or the National Association.
Yes.
Who contacted you in May of 2010 about becoming a board member?
Bobby Thompson.
Now, was that towards the end of May?
End of May, yes.
Now, did you consider, now was that of the National Association you were supposed to be a board member, or was it of the Florida chapter?
Florida chapter.
Okay, and did you at that point in time give consideration to becoming a board member?
Yes, I did. I was complimented. I thought it was an honor.
So did you decide to do it?
Yes, I did.
Now, who were you going to replace, or what was going to be your role on the Florida, as the Florida chapter?
I think Bill Abrams.
You were going to replace Bill Abrams as the commander of the Florida chapter, correct?
Being the commander was never mentioned, but replaced that he had resigned. So,
Okay, so you were going to replace Bill Abrams.
yeah,
And Bill Abrams was identified as the commander.
yes.
Okay, now, you stated that you never met with Bill Abrams, correct?
That's correct.
Just to be clear, now you're being asked to take over for Bill Abrams, take over the Florida chapter. At this point, did you meet with Bill Abrams?
No.
Well, at this point, did you give him a call to ask him about the Florida chapter or anything like that? Did you talk to him?
No.
Did you, now, the chapters were set up with a commander and then a deputy commander, and then you'd have members, correct?
I guess.
Okay. Well, we'll ask, as you guess. Now, when it was set up, you're going to be the new head. You're replacing Bill Abrams. When did you meet your let's say deputy commander or the lieutenant commander or whoever, whatever they titled, this number 2 for the Florida chapter?
Well, I didn't.
Did you talk to somebody that was identified as the second in command, your assistant?
No.
You want to say? No. Was there somebody ever that you're aware of?
My understanding was I was just a board member.
Okay. Now, when you replaced Bill Abrams then, the Florida chapter, were you provided with was there an office somewhere?
No.
Well, where were the financial records when you replaced him? Where were the financial records for the Florida chapter?
In their office in Tampa.
Did you go to Tampa to the office?
No. Well, I understood that the records, the office had been moved to Blanca, to her residence.
So, when you became the commander, and that of the person who replaced Bill Abrams, you never saw the financial records.
No.
And did you ask to see those financial records?
No, I did not.
Did anybody offer to take you to them and show you those?
No.
Now you said Blanca. What did you understand Blanca's role? Was that Blanca Contreras?
Yes.
What was Blanca Contreras' role when you became the head of the Florida chapter? What did you understand Blanca Contreras' role to be?
That she was in charge of the office.
She was in charge of the office.
Yes.
Now, you were approached at the end of May by the person using the name Bobby Thompson to replace Bill Abrams in the Florida chapter, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, did you have to think about it for a while, or did you immediately accept, or what?
I immediately accepted.
Okay. Now, did you have any discussion with the individual using the name Bobby Thompson about what he wanted you to do as a board member for the Florida chapter?
Yes, I did.
What did the individual tell you?
That there was going to be a meeting in New York and that our major fundraiser was potentially bailing out or ceasing services because of some things that he had heard, and that I was asked to go and say, relate my experiences and say some positive things.
Now you're saying relate your experiences. Would that be your experience in running that vehicle donation program?
Yes.
Now when you're talking about, you said because the fundraiser had heard some things, is that correct?
That's correct.
What did the defendant tell you was the concern of the fundraiser that he had heard?
Well, non-existent board members.
So did he explain to you then why he wanted you? You said, okay, you were supposed to go and say good things, but why you as a new board member?
Well, that my experience with him with regard to conducting the program had been good.
So you agreed to become a board member, correct?
Yes.
And what did you do about that meeting in New York City then?
I went to it.
Now, was that meeting held in early June of 2010?
Yes,
Would that have been from the 7th to the 10th of June?
I think so.
Did any other person show up at that New York meeting with the fundraiser as a board member for the association?
Yes.
Who else arrived at that meeting, supposedly as board members?
Carmika Rubin.
Now, did you know Carmika Rubin?
I had talked to her, I think, on the phone once or so, but I met her there. That was...
You met her at this meeting?
Yeah.
What was your understanding as a new board member as to how long she had been a board member?
That she had just accepted about the time that I did.
Well, how long did she remain a board member?
A week or two, not long.
Now, you kind of indicated, in a short way, why you became a board member You said you thought it was an honor.
Yes.
What was the reason?
Well, I'm a veteran and had been out and talking to some of the veterans that were donating vehicles, and just thought it was a good cause.
Now, how long did you actually stay aboard? You said Carmita Rubin was within a week or so.
Yeah.
To your understanding, was done, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You have to say yes or no.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's fine. It's hard to break that urge. How long did you then remain a board member after this meeting in June 10th, from June 10th?
A couple of weeks, maybe 3.
Did you go back and forth then, like when you first resigned, did you come back and become a board member again for a short period of time?
I resigned, and but then did come back for a week or so. I mean,
Now, you resigned after the meeting in New York City, correct?
yes.
Why?
Well, because from what I was hearing, and that the people didn't exist, and it just seemed like a house of cards.
Now, at the time you heard about this after you left, you said that the fundraiser said the reason for the meeting was that there were no directors or no officers, correct?
Yes.
And he presented, and I guess the individual using the name Bobby Thompson presented you and Carmita Rubin, correct?
Yes.
After that meeting, Carmita Rubin resigns, correct?
That's correct.
And you resign, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no?
Yes.
That's fine. Now, in that time frame after the meeting, you said that you resigned because it seemed like a house of cards. Well, did you make any attempt to actually locate any of the other officers or directors that were named in any kind of documents or on the website or something like that for the USNDA?
Yes, I did. I thought that there was an office in Washington, and that if the problems existed just with Bobby, then possibly it could be turned around, could be fixed.
So this is before you actually turn around and resign.
Yes.
Okay, now, did you come across the name Jack L. Nimitz?
Yes.
And what was your understanding of what this Jack L. Nimitz was supposed to be associated with the USNDA?
He was the head of it, supposedly.
And when you said with the Washington, D.C. office, what did you in fact do? Did you make any attempt to find this Jack L. Nimitz?
Yes, I did.
What kinds of things did you do to try to find Jack L. Nimitz?
Well, information on the website. Went up to D.C., found that the office was a mailbox, P.O. box, whatever.
So you actually went to D.C.?
Yes.
To the address that you found on the website?
Mhm. And there was a name or two on the website that I attempted to locate.
Well, did you attempt to call this Jack L. Nimitz?
Yes,
Where did you get the number that you tried to call?
from the website.
And what happened when you made that attempt to call this number for Jack L. Nimitz?
I got the voicemail or at the website.
Did you recognize the voice on the voicemail?
The first part of it I did not, but at the end of it, there was an additional message inserted by Bobby, and I recognized that voice.
Well, now, when you went to the office in Washington, D.C., you said it wasn't there. What did you find when you went to the location that was identified as the office?
Just a P.O. box.
Did you find any other office at that point in time?
No.
Did you ever find an office on Connecticut Street, some kind of leased building, leased office? Nothing?
No.
At that point in time, when you go in 2010, there's no identification of any other kind of office except this one mailbox number.
That was all I had, yes.
Now, you had that meeting in June, it ended in June of 2010. You make these attempts. So was your attempt to locate this Jack L. Nimitz in D.C. and talk to him on the phone, did that occur in the time frame of late June of 2010?
It was 2 or 3 weeks after the meeting, yes.
So either late June or early July of 2010.
Yes.
And then after you couldn't locate this Jack L. Nimitz, and you couldn't find any of the directors, that's when you decided you were going to resign.
Yes.
Now, you were contacted by investigators in this case, correct?
Yes.
And you were asked to review your documents, your files, to see if you could find any documents you had received from the individual you knew as Bobby Thompson, correct?
Correct.
And you did find at least one document in that regard, correct?
Yes,
And you provided that to the state in the course of the investigation?
I did.
I'm going to ask you to look at what's been marked as State's Exhibit 69. And this is identified as known samples B.
Mr. Mayor, do we want to recess before we get into 69?
No, Your Honor, we're almost done. I know that's probably bad to say, Your
I'm
Honor.
going to hold you to it.
Yes, sir.
These go through, you're saying 69, these go through 46?
No, okay. I'm going to ask you to look specifically at what's identified in there as item number 42.
Ah, okay. Got it?
Okay? Now, do you recognize that document?
I do.
And what do you recognize that specific document to be?
I had been considering finding a website or something that people could Google in to get, find a charity, and these were suggestions of good sites to do that, that Bobby Thompson sent me.
So you made that inquiry of Bobby Thompson and asked him if he had any kind of suggestions for you?
Yes,
And this is a note that he then sent you?
that's correct.
Now, when you made that inquiry as to the possibility of any, for some suggestions, did you talk to any other person from the USNDA, supposedly, about needing that information?
No,
And after you talked to the person you knew as Bobby Thompson, this is what you received, this handwritten note.
that's correct.
Does that appear to be a true and accurate copy of the note you obtained from the person using the name Bobby Thompson?
Yes, it does.
And does it appear to be in substantially the same condition as when you received it and provided it to the state of Ohio?
It does.
Sir, do you see the person who presented himself to you as Bobby Thompson in connection with the United States Navy Veterans Association here in the courtroom today?
I do.
Would you please point that individual out and briefly describe what he's wearing?
Red tie, dark suit, beard.
Your Honor, request the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant as the individual he knows as Bobby Thompson.
Well, the record so reflect.
I have no further questions at this point for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, then let's take our evening recess. Before we do so, I will remind you of your standard admonition, which again is to say not to discuss this case nor permit it to be discussed in your presence. Do not begin to form or express an opinion about the case until a case is finally submitted to you. And again, I'm going to give you a reminder about the media, our media guests. So do not read, view, listen to any reports in a newspaper, radio, TV, internet, all the other technology ways. Again, please don't be Facebooking, tweeting, any other things that you can do, because bear in mind that you must make your decision